Happiness is beautiful, it's a kind of reality. Happiness is the highest good, happiness is free. So let's be so very happy. Yeah, let's be so very happy. Yeah, let's be so very happy.
Welcome to the Happiness Show. This is Lionel Ketchian, and I'm here with George Ortega, and we're here to talk about happiness because happiness is, always has been, and always will be the point of it all. Today we'll be talking about happiness, competition, and cooperation. So George, let's start off with asking you the question, how can competition actually be harmful to happiness?
Okay, yeah, a lot in our culture, we're taught to be competitive from a very early age. They try to de-emphasize it like in Little League when they're very, very young, but as soon as they're, let's say, 7, 8, 9 years old,
right.
It's a lot of it is about winning. Then in school, one is competing against other students for grades, grades on exams, final grades. For some parents, this competition is so intense and extreme. They're trying to compete against other parents to get their kids sent to the best elementary schools, to get into the best junior high schools, colleges, high schools and colleges and all. So the reason it's bad, and when not viewed correctly, is that a lot of times it'll just pit people against each other. Competing, like, in that sense, a lot of times our happiness will come at the expense of others. Like, if another person, let's say, doesn't do well on a test, doesn't do well, like, on the playing field doing something, that'll cause us to feel good, but not in a very ethical way, because, and naturally, on the other hand, when kids don't perform well, don't get the grades, don't hit the ball as well, then they're because of this competitive nature, kind of like taught by society not to feel so good about it.
Yeah, as you're speaking about this, I realize that in the job market, for example, we hope we get the job based on our own capability, but then again, for our own benefit, we hope somebody else sort of fails at it so that we could step up and take that job that maybe they don't have the credentials for, or maybe just we're not having a good day and just sort of flunked out for that particular interview. Actually, it comes down to the reason won't matter as long as we get the job, and that'll be the most important thing. So it's winning no matter what the cost. And I think that maybe competition has instilled that in us, that winning no matter what the cost, no matter what the result, is the result that matters, nothing else.
Right, because when you think about it, Lionel, considering that happiness is most about our relationships. Most of us say that our relationships are what contributes most to our happiness. Like at work especially. If employees are pitted against each other for promotions, for salary increases, for different positions, that can create a kind of tension among them that doesn't lead to that camaraderie, that collective spirit that brings on much more happiness.
True, and competition, I should say, is a big thing in sports. It's amazing when I think about, for example, an Olympics game, and you take an event like downhill skiing. There'll be a gold winner, a silver, and a bronze winner, the three winners, but yet each one of them all finished in exactly the same time, but only maybe a thousandth of 1 second faster than the next one, or a half a second. And if we really think about that, it's almost insane to think that, well, here's the first place, here's the second and third, and they all came in the same second.
It's amazing.
So my thinking is, they're all very, very, very good, and to sort of put one on a higher pedestal than the other, always felt strange to me because I always thought that the three of them were winners, but when you break it down to this guy's the best, this is the second best, third best, I think that kind of competition instills winning and everything else doesn't matter. And I think that's exactly probably the opposite, as far away from happiness as you can ever get, because if you enjoyed the game, if you even participated in helping your teammate do better, you would probably enjoy the game 10 times more than just winning on your own.
Yeah,
for
Lionel,
example.
Oh yeah, I think you hit the key. I think competition is probably the most harmful to happiness because it distracts us. You know, we're so focused on winning, you know, beating the other team, the other person and all, that we lose sight of the actual purpose of whatever we're doing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And a sport should the main reason to have a sport isn't really to win, but to enjoy. And I think even in school, well, there is some schools where they have no grades. I understand this. I think there's either pass or fail.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Sure. Sure. And some colleges even.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Right. So I mean, what that does is it teaches you to learn and not base what you're learning as a competition to what rank you are in the class, for example.
Right.
So either you know the subject or you don't know the subject. And I think that's interesting. I mean, that has a merit. Whether or not it's proven that's the most effective way to learn, I don't know. But I think the competition adds a tremendous amount of stress, first of all.
Yeah.
And we all agree that stress is certainly not the very best mechanism for success or enjoyment. And then here's another thought. When somebody does win, of course they go on to being, a chewing gum representative and making millions promoting maybe chewing gum or something because they won the Olympics. But basically they probably don't feel that good about themselves because somebody comes along in a not too distant future and beats their performance. And now they're left thinking, well, they're a has-been, they're a used to be, and so how can you don't win once and forever. You only win once, and then somebody else comes along and does better.
Yeah, you're left playing defense the rest of your life if you're very successful.
Yeah, so that's another reason happiness has become important in maintaining a certain style for winning.
Right, but again, now we want to emphasize that while this program is primarily about the benefits of cooperation rather than competition, competition is definitely not all bad, and that's what we want to explore now. I mean, how is competition actually good for happiness?
Well, in some ways, I guess the competitive nature in business is that that a lower price can prevail, and hopefully even better quality items can be made through competition. In other words, it's the mother of invention. When the need arises for a better quality product, competition could actually promote that need, and also not only make a better quality product, but maybe make it at a less costly price for the consumer. So in that sense, competition is a good thing, because if we only had monopolies, they could charge whatever they wanted, and you would be stuck.
Right, and I mean, this isn't just about business, of course. It's about school, it's about sports, it's about games, it's about everything. It's about life in general.
Right.
Competition does bring out our best. You know, I mean, and it can be fun. See, competition, if viewed in the right way, it can, you have a great time if you win. You have a great time competing against your friends, your associates, to win, but winning and losing isn't the purpose. It's just the fun of it, the fun of competition. And that's where it's good. That's where it brings out the best. It kind of it can also teach us to be humble in victory and to be happy in defeat, to accept defeat gracefully.
Yeah, I like to think, George, that another aspect of competition that may not be that widely recognized is competition within yourself. In other words, if you use yourself as a yardstick and a model to try to improve on, and if you look at your own experiences, and if you want to boil it down to a diet or how fast you ran a race, instead of measuring everybody else around you, if you realize, okay, I lost the race, but I ran it 10 seconds faster than I did last week, that kind of competition within yourself can be tremendously helpful in making you realize the potential you have within yourself. And I think that's competition too, but we don't generally focus on inner competition.
Right, yeah, and you're right. I mean, because again, just as like competing with others encourages and motivates us to really strive to push ourselves to our limits, you know, to what we can do. Competing among ourselves is, I think, even more ideal because, you know, we're comfortable with improving, and it doesn't set up a win-lose situation. We're always winning because we're always improving.
Right.
I want to address also, though, you know, if competition is, because I think for many of us, it's much more harmful than it is helpful. So, like, and in society in general, perhaps, if that's the case, then, you know, the question becomes, well, why do we compete so much?
You know, I think one of the reasons we like to win is it makes us feel good and we derive a sense of satisfaction and happiness. I really do. That's how important happiness is. The only, I would almost say, trouble with it is that it's very short-lived. It usually, you know, is only for a few moments, and unless there's a tremendous agreement out there for what you did, you can't sustain it. In fact, even if you become famous with what you did, without inner happiness, it is unsustainable anyway. It doesn't matter how many people think you're famous. It really comes down to what you think of yourself. So, in that sense, competition and trying to win over someone else in order to be happy usually doesn't work.
Okay, that's true. Here's like something I think that directly relates to the happiness research. See, the thing is, we compete for grades. We compete to see how successful we're going to become. We compete to see how much money we're going to become, you know, and the problem with this is, like, we're competing, we're devoting a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of our consciousness and focus to these things, but the problem, the biggest problem to this, you know, competing too much on those things, is that these things we compete for, the money, the success, the education, the influence, that's not what happiness is about. So we end up, what we'll do is we'll compete, and let's say we win, you know, let's say we win promotions, we win success, we win money, whatever it is we win. We sometimes find that, yes, we've won, but the victory can be very hollow because it excludes what life is really about. You know, so this competition, I mean, you know, why do we compete so much? We compete so much because we think the things we're competing about are going to make us happier, and unfortunately most of us don't understand. You know, it's not just, it hasn't gone from the research to the public enough yet for us as a society to understand that these things we're competing for don't make for our happiness.
Well, it's a very important point, and I also think, you know, when you were saying the word, when you got to the word hollow, when you finally arrived, I was thinking empty, and we both got to the same basic word. And it is an empty feeling, because if that is the only reason you're competing, is to beat everyone and derive the feeling of being happy as a result of that accomplishment, that's pretty much a false premise, because yes, you'll be happy for an instant, but it can't be sustained. And in fact, I would even suggest that it could open up a great depression for a person, because to go from, let's say, a lofty top, there's nowhere to go but down, and that could be a problem. So I think it would be so much better to derive happiness, to do it with happiness, and then when you get there, at least you've been evolving your own happiness and starting to understand better how happiness can work in contributing to a more resourceful, powerful state for you to accomplish these things in. And then you will at least have happiness to take with you as you go past that mark. And it wouldn't have all been about winning and about that moment, and then that would be it. It would be about life, and, you know, and you would continue to sort of grow satisfaction and happiness, and then bring it with you on your journey, and so it wouldn't end on the finish line.
Definitely. Okay, so yeah, so now we're exploring, you know, why we compete so much, and I think we have an understanding. You know, we compete because we think it's going to make us happier. Unfortunately, we don't know happiness well enough to realize that so much we compete for doesn't. Now, the other question becomes, why don't we cooperate more? Why, you know, if competition, you know, it sets up this win-lose situation where many of us lose, what's the value of cooperation, and why don't we do it more?
That's an excellent question, and I think first off, we weren't really taught cooperation. When we were taught to behave in class, we were taught to individually behave, and then one of us might be scolded for talking out of turn. But in general, there wasn't much work going on for cooperation, like working together. In fact, if you work together, it's called cheating and you get in trouble. It was about the closest you got to working together in a classroom. Businesses are now promoting cooperation and teamwork and working together, and people have sensed a tremendous feeling of satisfaction in going to work. And some have even said, I've got to go to work. I can't let my team members down. And it's been a mutual feeling in business where a certain kind of a team effort has been very rewarding for people in the workplace, because they felt that they're a part of a group. And, I always think that when it comes to cooperation, like, for example, you and I, George, when it comes to cooperation, at least this is my feeling, I think together we can do so much more than we can individually. And so there's an excellent reason for cooperation, because something such as a happiness show, or really anything you take on, has always got lots of work to it. And there's just a different energy pattern that happens when you have two people handling something. The encouragement, even the disagreements, and all the communication that goes into it is enhanced by cooperation. Because here's another value to cooperation. If two people are working on a particular project, for example, then that project, it's proven that that project has meaning. If one person does it, there may be days they wonder, what am I doing? Is this important? Is it meaningful? But when there's two people doing it, they realize, well, even if I'm not totally sold on what I'm doing, the other person who's working with me is encouraging me to keep on doing this because they've invested their time and energy into it. So cooperation becomes an energy builder and a magnifier of the singular way of looking at things, or even the opposite of just I'm the winner and everybody else is the loser.
Right, and it's good, yeah, definitely. Cooperation, rather than pitting people and groups against each other, it brings people together to work on the common goal. And of course, I think when you do that, then more often than not, that's going to breed greater results. But again, we have to remember that let's say a group of people could be cooperating on the kinds of things that we might compete for, like success, promotion, more money, and that wouldn't make them any happier as a group. But the good part is that again, happiness is very greatly about other people. So what cooperation does that competition doesn't do as much is that as people are cooperating to succeed with different projects, they're interacting. They're relating to each other in ways that do create much happiness.
I think you've brought up a very critical point to this whole discussion, and it's the interrelating. That's the key word here. And you're right. Whereas, in a sense, you're interrelating in competition, but you're not entwining. You're still holding your individuality, and you're pitting that against everyone else. In cooperation, you're entwining with others. You're cooperating. You're actually spreading happiness. You're sharing it. You're sharing something of yourself. You're getting something of the other person, and I think it's a very human need. I really think that cooperation is actually a very human need, which we haven't really tapped into very much when you think about it.
Lionel, that is such a great point, because when we're competing against each other, we kind of we don't tap into that sense of oneness, that connection with each other. As a matter of fact, competition does, as you were mentioning, it kind of pulls us apart, competing at it. But when we cooperate, then that brings us together so that we're feeling more at one with others. And you're right. The problem in today's society, it is changing, because as you mentioned with business, they're using teamworks more, and I know in schools, in elementary schools especially and all, they're much more in these recent generations than in past ones, bringing kids together on projects. They do that a lot more. I used to supervise kids in this gifted and talented program years ago, and they began doing that back then. But yeah, the idea is that as you bring people together to cooperate, I mean it fosters that mindset that naturally leads to happiness.
Yeah, and I don't know that we experience that enough, or we've got enough times where we're brought into these situations. In other words, these situations don't exist that much, and competition exists a lot. I mean, even on a highway, it's become more of a competitive roadway than it is anything else. And even a traffic jam, you will create competition where people feel they have to go around and they've got to be first. But the truth is that if people could cooperate with one another, they would probably negotiate the traffic jam much faster with cooperation than with competition.
Oh, yeah. Lionel, something really great is happening recently. A lot of our competition is around money. Getting into a good school to be successful, to make more money. When people are asked what's going to make them happier or happiest, the number one answer is more money, even though, the research demonstrates that is so insignificant, that just doesn't work. What's really great that's happening now is that Lord Richard Layard, a top European economist, the founder of Europe's top economic institution, just came out recently with a book titled Happiness, and basically he's demonstrating to financial institutions, to the world of economics in general, that hey, you can make more money, but as a society, it's not going to make us happier. As an individual, it's not going to make us happier. I mean, for example, there's one finding that here in the United States, we're 2.5 times richer now than we were in World War II. We're no happier, and we're actually, there's a much more depression now. So the idea is, yes, Richard Layard and others, of course, are now demonstrating that our economic system, our system of working, of enterprise, has been effective in succeeding in creating this technological society, but it has not been effective as intended goal. And so that, yes, as we shift from competing for more money, for more success, to maybe competing for more happiness, I mean, that might be, you wonder. I mean, I would probably maybe not want to encourage competing for happiness, because a lot of times if you compete for happiness, then that would tend to encourage a person to gain their happiness at the expense of others, and that's not good.
Okay, why don't we just say cooperate for happiness?
Yes. Yeah, because that's the thing, because when we cooperate and our goal isn't to succeed at accomplishing the project as best we can, or at beating another company or another group of students, if we're cooperating to do our job well enough, but as importantly, perhaps more importantly, to really enjoy what we're doing, then that's the key.
When you think about competition and to be the best, to be really the best, and what does that mean? To be the best sports person, the best all-around person, maybe the best model anybody has ever had, not just the best American, but the best human being that could have ever lived. If you think of that in terms of competition, then in my mind, the very best, competitively speaking, to single out a person, that person would have to be selfless to be the best. In other words, that person would have to be so great that they would lose themselves in their integrity to want the best for all humans. Now that would be my idea of a very competitive, very successful human being. But that person, in being competitive, wouldn't be competitive so they would come first. They would be competitive to show the world that their competition rests on the cooperation of the world. In other words, their integrity is entwined with the goodwill and health, happiness, and the benefits for all human beings. I mean, that would be what I would consider the utopia of competition. Not just a sports athlete or a great president or a great boxer, but a great human being. I mean, what could be higher than one person who cares about all?
Oh yeah, and we should all care about all. Lionel, we've got about 2.5 minutes left. Let's deal with, like, how can we use cooperation to create a happier world?
Well, I think when we find out how good we feel by cooperating with others, it instills an even greater need and resource for us to do more for others. Because, you know, in the end, happiness is in giving to others. We derive a greater sense of satisfaction in helping others find happiness.
Okay, I've got one specific way.
Good.
Our population, our world population is about 6 billion people, you know, maybe a little over now. About half that number lives on $2-3 a day, American dollars. You know, it's not like as $2 like in these places can buy much more. You know, so, and we know from the research that that poverty does, while money above the poverty line doesn't affect happiness much, poverty makes it much more difficult for people to be as happy as they can. So, given that fact, and given the fact that emotions are so contagious that, you know, you have half the population of the world that it's really difficult for them to be as happy as they can because they have so little, it just makes a lot of sense for the world to cooperate to help them economically, to help them, you know, have lifestyles, have their basic needs, food, shelter, clothing, to raise their level of happiness, and that, I think, will be an amazing effect on us all. They know, partly also because, like, happiness is about giving. Happiness is about, again, like you're saying, it's not about us. It's about one. It's about us as one. So as we like shift our focus from competing to get better for ourselves to cooperating to enhance the welfare of us all, that's going to create great happiness.
Well said, George, and it really, you're pretty much stating what I'm saying, is that happiness beyond ourselves is real happiness. And when we can reach out and care for others and look at humanity as one, then I think real happiness can prevail. It's a great thought. It's a good closing for our show, and we hope that you've enjoyed the time as we have. Well, it's about all the time we have for today. Thanks very much for watching. In the future, we'll explore other topics designed to help us better enjoy life. Be good, think well, feel very happy, and I hope you'll join us again next week.
Happiness is powerful, it's our underlying need. Happiness is why we live each day. Happiness is destiny, so let's be so very happy. Yeah, let's be so very happy. Let's be so very happy.